Fender Lead II guitars and ThroBak replacement pickups coming up. Fender Lead II guitars. Well, it just so happens I have one here. These were re-released by Fender at the 2020 NAMM this year. Matthew and I had a look at them, and I decided to get one. And you may be familiar with the series. These were initially released in the 1980s and weren't real popular then. They kind of had the reputation of being very heavy, but I'm happy to say that the Player Lead II series of guitars that Fender's released seemed to fix most of the downfalls and pitfalls of the 80s version. These are much lighter from what I've experienced than the 80s version. They also have medium jumbo frets, an extra 22nd fret, and I think this bridge is a bit of an improvement over the original bridge that was on the 80s version. So all in all, these are really nice guitars. I got this one, and I did feel that, you know, a guitar this nice deserved a ThroBak pickup upgrade. So I have made a set that I offer on the ThroBak website. It's called the FL-II MXV pickups. You might have them as a pair or as individual pickups. And I'm going to do a video showing how to swap these out. It's quite simple, but I'll play a little bit. I like to, before I switch them, well, these have been switched out already. I've got another guitar here that I'll switch the pickups out on for the sake of the video. But I kind of like to think of these as the what could have been in the 50s and 60s, the Fender equivalent to, let's say, Gibson's Les Paul Special. Sort of a pared down version of a Stratocaster, and maybe a little bit more economical, but sort of at its core, it's still got Stratocaster tones and features, because this plays much like a Stratocaster, except it's got the benefit of a few extra tones. You can get a sort of a middle position tone here, that you cannot get with a Strat, and also an out of phase middle position tone. So those are both cool tones. And then you have your sort of traditional neck Stratocaster tone and a bridge. So all in all, very flexible guitar, and I feel complements Stratocaster. So the original pickups that came with this guitar are a little bit squishy, in my opinion, compared to what you would get out of a Stratocaster, and not quite as stratty as what I wanted. So I took the old pickups out, and once I saw them, it made a little bit more sense as to why those are not really, the stock pickups in this guitar are not really a traditional Strat design. They're wound with 43 gauge wire, which is more typical of something like a Fender Broadcaster pickup or a Telecaster neck pickup. And at about 7.8 and 7.3K, which is what was in this guitar, they're a little squishy. Not quite as much power as they are, say, contrasted to a 10K Broadcaster pickup. And I didn't feel it really took advantage of the capability of the guitar, so I wanted to offer an upgrade for anybody out there that might want to switch their pickups out. So I'll show the video of that, the how to install these, because when you install them, you do want to avoid unsoldering the connections on the toggles here, because these are kind of sensitive little switches. So I show how to do that. But our FL-II ThroBak MXV pickups are a drop-in replacement. These are made with USA cast Alnico 5 magnets. These are the same magnets we use for some of our other pickups. 42 gauge plain enamel wire, 6.8K bridge, 6.2 neck. That's on the hotter side for the bridge for a Strat pickup with 42 gauge wire. 42 gauge plain enamel, and vintage style wax potting, so you keep the good microphonics of the pickup. The originals in here are they're nice pickups, but again, a little squishy, sort of jangly, not quite the power and dynamics that you would get from a hotter Strat pickup. So I feel it's a good upgrade. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. I'll play a little bit. You can hear some of the tones, and then we'll watch the video. All right, we've got our Fender Lead II guitar here, and the first thing we're going to do is take the strings off. We'll reuse these strings. These are brand new strings. I'll undo them at the tuners, and we'll take the pickguard off. Basic tools you're going to need here would be a little pair of needle nose pliers is always handy, Phillips screwdriver, wire cutters, soldering iron, which you will see in a bit, and the ThroBak FL-II pickups, FL-II MXV. These are actually, so just a quick rundown of the construction. 42 gauge plain enamel wire. Bridge is 6.8K. We wax pot these like a vintage style pickup, so you maintain the good microphonics, but you get a stabilized coil because of the way it's wax dipped. And again, USA made Alnico 5 USA cast magnets that are custom made for us. Here's the neck pickup. Bridge pickup has yellow and black wires. Neck pickup, white and black. And also too, these could be used for a Strat. They have that option on the ThroBak website on the checkout page. If you indicate that you want them for a Strat, we'll make them that way. Anyway, they come without the covers and without the pull screws, or not pull screws, height adjustment screws in order to keep the cost as low as possible, but they just drop right in and fit perfectly with the original covers that are on your guitar and the original screws. They're threaded and everything, ready to go. Okay, so we've got the pickguard off. I would suggest, put a towel between the guitar and your pickguard here so that you don't run the risk of scratching anything. And let's take this little piece of tape off. And what I always suggest people do before you start cutting wires or anything like that, or removing anything, get your cell phone, take a picture of it. That way, if you need to double check your work, you've got the reference right there. So do that, and then I'll explain exactly what we're going to do as far as what to cut, what to strip, and what connections need to be made. Okay, so you've taken a photo, and what we're going to, let's start with the neck pickup here, replace that first, because both of those connections are soldered to terminals here on a switch. And we do not want to unsolder these because these switches are not real durable when it comes to soldering and reworking them. And we don't want to have any problems with those switches. So we'll leave a little extra wire here. So if the pickups, there's plenty of wire with the original assembly to allow us to cut and leave a little extra to hook up the new pickups. Before we do that, let's get our replacement pickup and then just gauge how much wire we're going to use. Let's do that right there. Cut it there. A little extra is not a problem. And again, this is pushback wire, so we can expose the wire right there. And we'll cut these two leads, remove the pickup, and place ours in, and we'll make the connections. Let's do that. Now remember, we're going to leave just a little extra here for those connections. Okay, now we're going to reuse this cover. Right now, maybe it's a good opportunity also to, often these will have wax residue on them from when they pot these pickups. So I'm going to clean the wax off of that, off the front of the cover. And also, you might want to check here to see if there's little bits of pickguard plastic, protector plastic still in the screws there. That's your chance to get that out. But we'll be reusing these mounting screws and rubber springs and cover. Ours will fit right in there perfectly. But I'm going to clean that off and we'll get that set up, those connections stripped and soldered. Okay, I guess you do need a wire stripper too. I've got this handy dandy automatic wire stripper. Don't need it for the pushback wire, but you do need it for these. You could use a X-Acto knife, very carefully. But nice wire stripper. Always makes a nice, quick, clean work of it. All right, so the idea here is for these connections, we're just going to connect black to black, white to white. You want to have a good mechanical connection first. So I'm just going to turn these over. Do a little hook shape. Make the connection. And then we'll solder that. Do that to both wires. You can usually might want to crimp them a little with the pliers, but usually just using your fingers here is good enough. All right, let me get the soldering iron and we'll make a quick solder joint there. All right, I've got my soldering iron. For anybody doing guitar soldering, a wider screw tip like that, you could use a little smaller than that, works well. I'm using for this I'm using a Weller WD-1 soldering station, but you want a higher wattage soldering station, 60 watts or up. I think this may be 100 watts, but I tend to put it up all the way for stuff like this so I can make the connection quickly. You always want to clean your tip on a sponge, wet sponge, or this has a little sort of bronze Brillo pad. Tin the tip, and then solder your connection real quick. Let that cool. You don't want to move it while it's it's cooling, otherwise you'll get a cold solder joint. Do that to both of them. And it's as simple as that. Now once these are soldered, you need to insulate them. I'm just going to use a small piece of the black paper electrical tape that we use for pickups, and that's really all that's required. You could use shrink tubing if you want. You could use plastic electrical tape, but these are low voltage connections and this is more than adequate. You just want to make sure that you get good insulation there so it doesn't ground out on any other connections once everything's back together. Okay, so we've got the neck pickup done. Let's go on to the bridge. The bridge again now has one connection to a switch. We don't want to unsolder these terminals, so we'll cut that. Again, there's plenty of wire with this. We'll cut that maybe right about there. And then you have another connection that solders to the back of the pot. You can either, the simplest method would be to cut the connection here and solder it. Since everything is grounded to the back of the pot here, once you start messing with that, you may be looking at resoldering all of those connections back. So to simplify it, we'll just cut right there and do the same thing, connecting the pickup with those two connections for the bridge pickup. Also, if you're wondering how to clean the wax off the cover, there's still a bit here on it. You can just rub it with a dry cloth and you can kind of buff it off. It's pretty easy to clean. You don't have to degrease it with something like lighter fluid or some other degreaser. Replacement pickups and cut off the excess there. And again, you can leave this as long as you want, as long as you can get everything in the control cavity without causing a problem. And the construction of the original pickups that came with the guitar, it's sort of a plastic bobbin that Fender's made, and that works fine. And the magnets are pressed in there. Ours is the traditional fiberboard construction with a lacquer dipped bobbin and then wax potted the vintage way. Ours has 42 gauge plain enamel wire. This is a 43 gauge poly wire. It's smaller wire diameter. And this is actually a fatter coil, which the coil size itself contributes to the fatness of the tone. So you actually get a little bit fuller tone, partly because this is a larger coil. And tape these up. One thing you want to make sure of also is make sure there's not any strands of wire that are poking out that are really super sharp, because they might poke through your tape, and just that one little strand would be enough to ground out a connection and make it go, make it sound like there's nothing, well, make the signal go dead. So just temporarily, but you don't want to have to troubleshoot something if you can avoid it. All right, so we'll put everything back and get your tape here and Tape the connections back up. Maybe I'll just get a new piece of tape. And just line them up so they'll go where they need to go, down the center channel. Just a little piece of masking tape. We'll place everything back in here. You can see it's routed for humbuckers. If you wanted, I'm assuming they did this for all of these bodies that you could, so you could put, they could use the one body for the single coil and double humbucker models. But let me put this back together, get the strings back on. We'll set these back up to the All right, there it is. The ThroBak FL-II MXV pickups, replacement pickups for the original pickups that come with the Player Fender Lead II guitars. I've now got a maple necked one, a Power Ferro necked Fender Lead II guitar with ThroBak pickup upgrades. I'm pretty happy with it. If you want to get a set for yourself, follow the link below. They're on the ThroBak website. It's probably a direct ThroBak item to keep the cost low. I'm going to have to do that, I think, but they're really quite a value. American-made Alnico 5 magnets, traditional Fender bobbin construction, lacquer dipped, 42 gauge plain enamel wire, 6.8 bridge, 6.2 neck, hotter bridge on the Strat Spectrum, Fender vintage style wax potting to keep the good microphonics. So you end up with a more dynamic guitar, a little bit more output, and I think more flexible and a little more expressive pickups with a bit more tonal colors than what comes stock with the guitar. Although the pickups come with the guitar are very nice, but they're really not sort of in the ballpark of what a classic Fender 50s, 60s Strat tone would be, which is, I think, kind of where this shines. It's somewhere in between a Strat and its own model that has these other options as far as middle position tones, out of phase tone, and the hardtail, although there are hardtail Strats out there, and if you've never had one, this is your chance to get something like that, because I've got a Robert Cray Strat, and those sound great. Stock pickups sound great, and if you haven't played one, a hardtail Strat, you might get hooked. They're pretty good. Anyway, if you like the video, please click the bell, and you'll get notifications of future videos. And once again, thanks for letting ThroBak be part of your search for great guitar tone.